This meeting of the Oak Park City Council is called to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deputy City Clerk Lisa Vecchio, please call the roll.
Mayor McClellan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Radner. Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Rich.
Here.
Councilmember Weiss.
Here.
We have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. The next item is a list of things on the consent agenda. These are approved without discussion, routine items. Anyone can ask to have one removed from and considered separately. Regular council meeting minutes of December 18th, 2017. Beautification Advisory Commission meeting minutes of September 19th. Corridor Improvement Authority board meeting minutes of October 19th. Payment of invoices from Orchard Hilton McClement, OHM, for traffic signal optimization, the Water System Asset Management Plan, SAW grant support, and the 9-mile TAP grant design in the total amount of $69,206.62. Request to cancel the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of January 8th. And licenses, new and renewals, is submitted for January 3rd, 2018. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call, please.
Okay, discussion, sorry.
Yeah, we don't discuss it because it's considered as one item without discussion. Was there something you wanted removed?
Yeah, sorry,
What
I
was
didn't know
that?
at point to do that.
Yeah.
Item D.
D. Please remove item D. And with that being removed, we can vote on A, B, C, E, and F. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Item D is payment of invoices. Is there a motion to approve the payment?
So moved?
Is there
Second.
Moved and supported. Discussion, Councilmember Regina Weiss.
I just had a quick question. Where are we at? I'm looking at the prior buildings and the billing this period. City manager, do you have an idea of how many more, are we even on this? Or like, is this all paid up, or do we have more to pay yet on this project?
And Councilmember, are you speaking about the 9-mile redesign project?
Yeah.
I'm going to have the Assistant City Manager, Kevin Yee, come to the podium. I can't answer that. How many more payments?
Thank you. Yes, there are, OHM Advisors has requested some additional compensation for, there are several things that they've done outside of the scope of the original contract, so I'll be bringing those to a future meeting. So at this point, they are nearly completed with this portion of the contract, so I'll be bringing that forward at the next meeting. We're going to be looking for we're waiting for the Pocket Park analysis, and we'll be bringing that back as well as the City Council for approval on the Pocket Parks. So once we do that, we'll discuss what we want to do as far as those go, along with some of the other items of work.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Motion carried. We don't have elected officials. I think we froze them out this time. We do have a special recognition or presentation. It's the audit presentation, and we welcome Mark Kettner from Riemann Robson. If you will
Council, City Manager Tungate. Before Mark comes up, he does represent the firm that did our audit for the fiscal year 2016-17. I just wanted to
Yeah,
speak
is
up
your
a little.
mic on?
Oh, the green button's on.
Green button's on.
Before Mark comes up, I just want to point out a few financial highlights that the document that's before you represents that I think are worth noting. One of them is that the city's net position increased as a result of this year's operations, and that our net position of our governmental activities increased by $4.4 million or 9.3%. And this position of our business activities increased $1.4 million or 7.9%. The fund balance of our governmental funds, they reported a decrease of $0.9 million or 9.3% over the prior year, which was $10.1 million and $9.2 million. And our business type activities, which is our water and sewer fund, our revenues were $11.4 million, while our expenses were held at $10 million. I'm sorry, $10 million. The general fund reported an increase in fund balance of $0.2 million or 4.8%, which is always good when we can increase our general fund. And then just one other note that I wanted to state was that our city's installment debt outstanding, it decreased by $2.4 million or 6.4% over the prior year, because last year it was $37.6 million, and then now it was down to $35.2 million. And a lot of that is due to the refunding of the Coon Drain debt that decreased our expenses for that. So that was great. And Mark will come and present in a little bit more detail the audit and answer any questions that you have, but I just thought those were financial notes, highlights that were worth noting to you. And Mark?
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council people, Mr. City Manager. First, before I get going, and lest I forget, I want to pay compliments to the city manager and his crew, and also in particular to the finance director, Ms. Crawford. They had to, I think you're well aware, step back into the primary shoes of working with the auditors, which is a great thing to be able to do. And we didn't miss a beat, okay? I mean, a little bit different than the prior year, but the report was issued, not only on time, but before Christmas, which is always a treat for everybody. And we're here. We're doing this on time. And you've got a comprehensive annual financial report, as in prior years, but you have submitted to the GFOA, so you can get back into the cycle of having those reviewed and getting that certificate of excellence or achievement in financial reporting. So all good news, so my compliments, and to your crew as well. So our people really enjoy coming and working with you all. Okay, lest you want to go through this in really excruciating detail, I will try to hit some high points, but most importantly, I am here to address any questions that you have so that you get further value out of this. So let me just jump right into that. Actually, on page 9 of the CAFR is, if you will, the item that we as the auditors bring to the party, and that's our report, which contains our opinion. And your expectation of management is that they discharge their responsibilities in a fashion that allows for the ready preparation of the financial statements, which are quite a monster, in accordance with applicable standards. So our opinion, it's actually at the top of page 10, is that the financial statements are fairly presented, or another way of stating that is that they, in our judgment, are not materially misstated, okay? So that's the highest level of assurance that you're going to have on the financial statements. That is what you should expect of your people to do their jobs to allow for this to happen. So to that end, congratulations. That's always good news. The items that Ms. Crawford was reading to you, if you wanted one of those things and you didn't make a note of it, it's actually at the top of page 14. It's those highlights at the beginning of management's discussion and analysis. And there's more, there's detail in more lay terms, if you will, throughout the management's discussion and analysis. I'm not going to hang around in there, partly because it focuses on the government-wide statements, and while they are interesting, come on, we all really care about the general fund. So let's go just take a peek at the general fund in a little further detail, and that would be on page 35. It's the income statement for the general fund, budget and actual comparison. So you had planned from your final budget that you were going to have a positive change, $10,000, slightly more than break even on essentially a $20 million budget. And you came out a little better than that at $175,000, so that was increasing the fund balance. So that is, and I think when you look at this, when you look at your actual revenues came in higher than budget, good thing, conservative budgeting, and your expenditures, they also came in a little bit over, and it was kind of spread across a few things, public safety, public works, most of that. So, but your transfers out were a little bit less, which helped to even that out. So overall, I think that is a reflection, at least from my view, and I'm not giving an opinion on your financial condition or the financial results, but from somebody who sees a lot of these, that's good news, okay? On the page, excuse me, 37 is your other most significant fund is the water and sewer enterprise fund. 37 its income statement, excuse me, and that had a positive change of $1.4 million. Sometimes hard because you've got cash and non-cash items going on in there. So it's always good to take a look at, okay, so you came up, you increased your net position, but how are you sitting cash-wise? Next page, on page 38, third line from the bottom, is you had an increase in the cash balance of about $260,000. So, that's another piece of good news that is there. You had, and it's somewhat invisible for you, but the more bigger thing that's going to come is GASB 74 is on the OPEB, the retiree health care. Recall a couple years ago we had 67 and 68, if we're counting, where you had to record and start changing your disclosures on the pension plan. So now the next one up to bat here, and we did 74 this year, so there's actually additional disclosure started on page 91. The change then that's going to happen when 75 goes into effect next year is that liability, and again on page 91 it shows the amount at the double line of almost $39 million is going to be recorded, most all of that in the governmental activities, not the general fund, which the general fund will ultimately pay for most of that sometime in the future, all right? But that liability is going to go there, which will make the governmental activities net position look worse. But what did it actually do? It did not increase your cost. It did not decrease your cost. It's simply a matter of where this gets reflected. So you book a liability over there. Now chances are you're probably going to have some of that that's going to be allocated to the water and sewer fund, but it'll be certainly a much smaller portion of that. And just for the sake of argument, we can see that, well, there's almost $7 million of pension liability in the water and sewer fund, so it's probably going to pick up something in that neighborhood probably. So not, a positive thing for an enterprise fund or a full accrual. You may be wondering, why do you put it someplace and why don't you put it other places? Because in the activities or the funds that are on the full accrual basis, they would record a portion of the liability. Those funds that are on what's called the modified accrual, government, you're the only one that takes in money and gives away services, all right? So those are modified accrual. They do not record a long-term liability, which this is, okay? So that's what's going on with that. That's the next big change that is coming. That will, 75 is next year. Then you get a year off, and then you get a new standard, number 84, on, there is a test on this later, so make a note of these. 84 is going to be redefining the fiduciary activities, so you're going to have some changing in the funds, changes in how that's going to be reported. In essence, there's going to be like an income statement, inflows and outflows. And then 87, a year after that, and that's going to be on leases, which is going to change how the leases are done, both the accounting and disclosure. So the GASB has apparently nothing better to do than to come out with new standards that'll make it all more meaningful for you. So I would mention, and I just want to stop one other place before going to the separate letters. On page 55, which is in the notes to the financial statements, at the bottom of the page, it indicates that you have 6 funds excuse me, that are in a deficit position, okay? Most of those, I think 4 of those, are because of accounting policy, where you're using 60 days availability of the revenue on reimbursement-driven grants in order to book it. Have a drink of water. That is an interpretation between some firms as to whether it has to be 60 days or it could be more. From our reading of the standards, it doesn't say that anyplace. We would suggest to you that you modify your accounting standard, which basically means, thank you, to say you're going to do it this way, and it gets reflected in here, and then you don't report artificial deficits, because they can cause more problems than they solve, quite frankly. Thank you very much. The other deficits you're going to be addressing, the state does have some guidelines that you look not only at the deficit amount, but also if there's any deferred inflows, or if they're one of those full accrual funds, which an internal service fund is, if your current assets are greater than your current liabilities, then you don't have to do a deficit elimination plan. So you may have to end up for the future doing some general fund appropriation to put some money into those, but you can fix part of these problems by simply saying you're accounting for it a different way. Okay, rather than saying 60 days, you just say 1 year. Boop, taken care of. Okay, there are 2 separate items then. One is almost a collector's item, that being a compliance report. It was a performance audit that was required by MDOT, and MDOT required it because the legislature passed a law because somebody complained that, well, you've got more tax money, but you're not fixing the roads. There ought to be a law. There ought to be an audit. So they passed a law regarding an audit without any real direction as to what we're supposed to audit. And really, should there be some limitations on who it applied to? So anybody that got PA 51 money had to have a performance audit, which was really a compliance audit. There was a lot of people upset. you're getting charged extra money for something that was producing nothing. And so finally, MDOT saw the light and eliminated this requirement, but said, if you already had it started, or if you already had it finished, which in this case, it was finished, just needed to do the letter, please go ahead and do that, put it on record, that you got that. So I think City Manager Tungate said, yeah, there's no findings, so let's put it on record that we're clean. So, but this is not going to happen in the future unless they change something again. But I think if they do, they're going to put some better guidelines together and some dollar parameters, so everybody isn't getting audited when there's really no significance to that. So that's that. Separate then package, that's the communication with those charged with governance. Several pieces to that. The first 4 pages is that communication. A lot of auditories that's in there. Once you get past that, it doesn't say there's any issues. So that's good news. Page A1 then of that, there's one comment. This is kind of like, you know, other findings. There were 2 findings I should have mentioned in the CAFR in the back of that with the Yellow Book report. Basically, the 2 findings that are there are what you would expect, that you get help from the auditors, the experts in financial reporting, blah, 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 accounting. But when you do get that level of assistance from us, meaning you couldn't do it yourself, then you simply have to disclose that fact, okay? So the item in attachment A there basically just said you budgeted for a deficit in the district court fund. You can't do that. So reduce an expenditure or increase a revenue or do something.
Let me introduce, stop you just for a minute for a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From the city manager.
Mark, I wanted to just speak to this one specifically. I wanted to clarify, this is not a budget in the current, or not a deficit in the current court budget. This is a deficit that's a carry forward from a previous year. There was a deficit from a previous year that was carried forward, and council members, I think for obvious reasons, strategic reasons, I think you know why we did this. This is corrected by just a larger transfer in from the city's general fund into the court's budget, thereby knocking this out. So.
Attachment B then is talking about those new standards. So if you are particularly interested in the number and what it's about and does it affect you, there you go. And then attachment C is we have to share with you the representations made by management during the audit. It's not possible to encapsulate all the documents and all the conversations and everything like that. But this what's called management representation letter is in the back and is signed by management, top management. Basically what it says is you didn't keep any secrets from us that we would need to know in order to complete our work and render an opinion on the financial statements. So, short description of a huge item. There's a lot of great information in here. I'd be glad to take the first question or to let you get on with your meeting.
Any questions?
Sure.
Yes, Councilmember Burns.
I can't remember which page, but you had the page where you had the 6, we had our 6, and one of them was the sidewalk program had a
Sure,
deficit
it's
of
page 55.
55. At 145, like 515 deficit grant, and that was because of the money we've spent versus what we've gotten in thus far, and that will be corrected though, once we receive the funds.
That is correct, and as Mark said, I mean it's an accounting standard. We're asking for a 60-day payback period as opposed to for the full year. In this particular case, that is exactly what it is, just a timing issue.
Okay.
I did want to address that other thing, too. Of those 6 items that you saw, 3 of those, the state has asked us to submit a deficit elimination plan for. They're
Okay.
all court-related, and one of them you talked about with the 210,000. But those are all to be expected. I mean, and will be corrected with the transfer in, and then to the timing change, the accounting standard change that Mark spoke about.
Okay, yeah, 'cause that kind of jumped out right away. I'm like, oh, okay.
The sidewalks is one of those governmental funds, and I mentioned modified accrual. So it's one of those strange nuances, because all of us, if we had a business, and you say, well, I billed them, or will be billing for the special assessments, so I should have a receivable. Well, you do, but special assessments are a type of property tax. And so that is one of those items that you can only recognize the revenue for the collections that occurred within 60 days a year end.
Okay.
So you end up with this large deferral or deferred
Deficit.
inflow. So the state's calculation for if you've got a deficit that requires a deficit elimination plan, you take the amount of the deficit and you add back the amount of the deferred inflow. And if it's a positive number, you don't have to file a deficit elimination plan.
Okay. Thank you.
City Manager Tungin.
Council members, I just had a couple of points I wanted to stress, because I think you might find these interesting. One is, and Mark has covered a couple of these, but one is that last year, we grew the general fund balance, the unrestricted general fund balance, by about 174,000. I think it's right around 19% or 3.8 million or so, which provides for about 2.5 months worth of operations. For those of you, and I guess only one of you now has been serving since 2012, we had a negative general fund balance at that time. So to go from that to now, 3.8 million is a substantial change. Two,
I think, and I can't remember where it was, but I think it said that the general fund decreased by almost $1 million.
in terms of the expenditures of the general fund, well, it depends on when you're measuring that. From 2012, there's obviously been a decrease because there were several employees laid off and so forth. So it's a much smaller.
I thought I read it
budget.
somewhere here. I thought it was in the recap of the last year's
It was
budget.
a $21 million budget back in early 2012, and it's now about an $18 million expenditure budget.
Okay, it was somewhere else I read it.
One other thing, and I'm going to rattle through these really quickly if you don't mind. We also contributed more to the 2 pension systems respectively than we were required to by the actuaries. We contributed about $72,000 more than we were required to public safety, and about $81,000 more than we were required to for the employee retirement systems, which I think is a great mark for us. And then a couple other things I found interesting that the auditors had found, one of which is the unemployment in Oak Park, the city of Oak Park. And year to year, our unemployment rate, according to the auditors, has decreased from 14.2% a year ago to about 5.8% today.
Wow,
And,
that's good news.
and I know last year, Mark, I don't know if you remember, we talked about it last year. It was a substantial thing. The state's unemployment rate is 4.9%, so we're starting to mirror the overall state, which I think is a great mark for our city as well. In the current fiscal budget, the 2017-18 current fiscal year budget, we're expected to see about a 1.3% increase in just our property tax revenue. Now, remember that we lost almost 40% of our taxable value in the crash, so we've got a long way to go, but the good news is we are on a small but upward trajectory there. And next, I wanted to talk about, in 2008, the city had about 232 employees. In 2017, the city had a total of 199 employees, which is about 33 fewer than we had back in 2008. At the end of 2012, the city had about 197 employees, 2 fewer than today. So the point I'm making in bringing this up is that we really have not had a huge hiring spree or anything like that. We've really maintained pretty much the same staffing level, and then after the cuts, of course, in early 2012, we've maintained that next staffing level at about 197, 199 employees overall. In 2012, which I found this interesting as well, Technical and Planning had 526 building permits pulled, and in 2017, last year, they had 713, 187 more than in 2012, which speaks volumes to our efforts in economic development and the business activity throughout the city, and is a sign for the future. And then lastly, at the end of 2017, our city is now recycling 92 more tons of solid waste than it did in 2012, which 92 more tons of solid waste than we did in 2012 is a huge, huge accomplishment. And, you know, obviously the recycling carts are paying off, but I think our marketing efforts in this area is paying off as well, and our staff efforts as well. And the recycling committee, absolutely. One more thing, I did want to thank Mark and his staff. You know, they've been with us for quite a while now, and it's just great to work with these guys. They're fantastic. And also, I wanted to thank Director Crawford and her staff. This is not easy to work with, especially in a transition like this. So she's put in countless hours for this, and I really, really appreciate all that you've done for the city. And that's it.
Thank you. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And any other questions?
Yes.
or-
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Rich.
Just a few questions. I noted at the end of your report, you had a schedule regarding some material audit adjustments. From reading it, I think, if I'm reading it correctly, you're happy with the result of those adjustments, and is that correct? And I mean, you're happy with that the staff understands the changes that have to be made in the financial papers for that?
Yes. In fact, I think part of what we did is, besides providing some assistance with those items that are particularly GASB 34 adjustments, which is how you get from the governmental numbers to the full accrual numbers, that we also provided the work papers and wrote some instructions. So, you know, the idea of giving them a fish or teaching them to fish, we think that we did a little bit of that. You know, I'm not going to say that it's perfect, that they you know, can do it entirely on their own, but we're taking great steps towards that, and I'm pleased with that. But in another age, you know, 10 years ago, that's what you expected of the auditor, was to come in and help you with that higher level tasks, if you will. And so you can still do that. It's just when you rely on the external auditor, then that means your own internal controls over accounting, not on, you know, the dollars in, the dollars out. This is more of these adjustments, that you rely on somebody, then you have to write you up for it, which seems kind of unfair, but that's the way it is.
And in a nutshell, the money was accounted for. It was just in the wrong little places in the...
Yeah, it wasn't even really the money, you know, being here or there. It's like, it's one of the big assets that you have are your capital assets, including the infrastructure, right? Streets, roads, curb, gutter, sidewalks. So the general fund, or like the sidewalk fund, you know, they pay for that expenditure, so the money goes out, but they don't account for neither long-term debt nor long-lived assets. They become part of the governmental capital assets, which you show in the governmental activities, but then you have to depreciate them. Okay, so, you know, you were doing part of that. I know you've got them in the capital asset system, but they're more of conversion items.
But the bottom line is it's corrected, so next year, that situation, you seem pretty satisfied.
Yes.
You probably just have to look at and not have to give advice to correct it.
Yes.
Great. I have a question for you on page 91 of the report, 91, 92, 93. It's titled General Retiree Healthcare Plan. Maybe I'm missing something. Is this the retiree healthcare plan only, or the retiree healthcare and pension plan? Just the healthcare only, okay.
Yes.
And and then I think you said under GSB, was it either 80 or 84, this is gonna end up showing up more on our bottom line each year.
It will for next year, and it's number 75. But what's going to happen, from page 91, you've got that almost $39 million liability, that if we hold our finger there and we go to page 26, you see under the liabilities there, there's a net pension liability that is $46 million under the governmental activities and almost $7 million under the business type, which is the water and sewer.
So that money's gonna show up there now.
That money's going to show up there. Now, interesting thing is the next line down there, there's a net other post-employment benefits obligation, not calling liability, obligation for at $24 million. That's right below that.
And that is?
That's the OPEB contributions that you have not made.
The unfunded portion of the pension.
Not the unfunded portion, it's over the years, you have had actuarials that say you had an annual required contribution, the ARC, related to your OPEB, retiree health care, and you did not have the money to make those contributions. So that's actually a different liability in the way it's determined compared to the line above it for the net pension. So what's going to happen next year is the 24 million goes off and will be replaced with the 39 million. Okay? So the net impact to you is not going to be the entire 39, it's going to be just the difference between the two, or $15 million.
So really, the net impact to us is there today, but it's going to be more transparent next year.
Yes.
All right. Going back to 91, help me here with the math. I went to law school, so I don't do math well, okay? I can read and write.
Me neither.
But I got to use I have to use a calculator. All right. This OPEB, the net OPEB liability is a percentage of covered payroll. Can you explain that to me in the plainest English possible, what that percentage is telling me?
The bottom line there,
Yeah.
the 1,842%,
Yeah.
that is taking the net OPEB liability of $38,799,000 and dividing that by the covered payroll.
Okay. So is that percentage a good thing, a bad thing, a too high thing, a too low thing?
It's
Something to worry about, something to think about?
It's a too high thing, okay? By comparison, let's just look at one of the pension plans. Same kind of schedule, different numbers, different benefit. So if we look at page 85, so you've got there the pension liabilities with a covered payroll that's, you know, in same neighborhood as the number we're seeing on page 91. And you still see that, you know, you've got a fairly high number of the covered payroll, and, you know, you're less than 50% funded, all right? Where over with the OPEB, you got less than 3% that you funded. So compared to the pension, you know, you're way behind, and that's why you have taken measures over the years to limit that OPEB cost. I mean, it's one thing to want to have promises to the employees of being able to provide that benefit, but then there's financial realities come into play, and okay, you can't quite do it to that degree. Now, you can't do the same thing with the pension, except when you get in you know, negotiations or something like that. But you are not as good financially with that. and forget whether the amount of the obligation that was in the government-wide statements. This is the reality of the situation, is you're 3% funded for a very significant benefit. And a lot of that funding came from the additional monies you put in last year. So you've got a big nut to deal with for, not the next year, the next 30 years. It's a challenge.
Yes.
And
City
then-
Manager Tungate, please.
Councilmember Rich, I just wanted to speak to that too. And to Mark's point, we're 3% funded on our OPEB liability, which is 3% more than we were just a few years ago, remember. So we have made some strides. Now, we're going to have to deal with both the pension liability and the OPEB liability through Senate Bill 686, and I think we have all heard, there's this legislation that's been, I believe the governor's now signed it, coming down the pipe here. And one of the things that the legislation requires is that if your retirement health system is less than 40% funded, that you are going to be required then to submit a plan for how you intend to overcome that to the state. For the pension system, it's a 60% funded, floor that they're setting. So in both cases, it's very likely that we'll need to submit this report to the state and find ways, as we are, to overcome these obstacles. But correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, the pension benefit is a state constitutionally protected benefit. The OPEB liability is fair game in terms of it's not protected.
It can be revised.
It can be revised, and let's hope.
But these are the two biggest problems in our budget.
These are, not only are these the two biggest problems in our
Not
budget.
just for us, other municipalities.
So many more around the state, but the mayor asks me this question all the time, and I'll give you the same answer that I give to her, which is Oak Park, the city overall, is in a great trajectory. The thing that concerns me the most is the things we're talking about right now. These two obstacles, and again, not unique to us, they're all over the state, are our two biggest issues. And overcoming them will be our biggest task yet. But we can do it. There are ways to do it, and there are tools to do it.
One more question, page 93. Is that just a typo at the top, talking about Tecumseh? Is the page the proper page, that's all? Is it the proper page, or was it an insert from another document that didn't belong here, that's all?
Yeah, that was stolen from there, and the heading didn't get changed,
Okay,
so.
that's right, okay. The formatting was taken from a different, that's what I figured. All right, great, thanks.
A good spot. Thank you.
I can read, I just can't add.
Yes. By the way, I like your beard, too, so.
Further questions? Yes.
Just a quick question. On page 55, you mentioned that we had 6 funds in deficit. 4 of them were just because of accounting policy. The other 2, could you speak to the other 2 a little bit more about them?
Well, we mentioned the sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay, so that's in a deficit because it has to, almost, because of the extent of the special assessments that are billed receivable and that get deferred. I think the other one was the district court?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which you talked about earlier.
Yeah, and if I could just address it, just another thing I wanted to add about that. Believe it or not, they actually lost less money than we had thought they would. But this is just acknowledging that loss. And again, normally the cycle would be the city's general fund would just transfer in a larger number to overcome that. Because the way it's treated is almost like a department of the city, even though it's not. It is a fund account of its own. So we'll need to submit that information to the state as part of the deficit elimination plan for those 2, for 3 actually. So the retiree healthcare court fund too, so.
The new agreement with the court should help these numbers in the coming year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the agreement is really goes a long way in overcoming these, and especially if we see that they're, going to lose less than we predicted. And, we'll start to see the results of that coming up. Obviously, we're in a new calendar year here, but some of these changes are taking place here going into this new calendar year. But certainly, they'll go a long way in covering some of the losses that we've seen in the past. And if we break even, we're way ahead of where we've been in the past with them.
Wonderful. Any further? Want to thank you for your time, and a pleasure to work with you as always.
Likewise, thank you, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. We don't have public hearings, communications, special licenses. Number 11A, accounting reports. I'd like to ask for approval for payment of invoices submitted by Garin Luco Miller PC for legal services in the total amount of $15,532.29.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Good. Motion carried. Item 12. Motion to award the bid for the 2017-18 sewer lining project, M677, to Instituform Technologies USA Limited of Chesterfield, Missouri, for the total amount of $189,754.60. Need a motion to award this bid.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion on this?
Yeah.
Yes. Councilmember Weiss.
I noticed that it was the lowest bid. Were there any other considerations in choosing this one over the other two?
That I don't know. I'd have to defer to the Assistant City Manager, Kevin Yee.
Thank you. They were the low bidder. They've completed the work successfully for us in the past. We're satisfied with their performance, and we see no reason why we wouldn't want to award or recommend the award of the bid to Instituform.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councilmember Burns.
Yeah, I just have a question. I'm looking at the three bids, and I'm noticing that we awarded the one for $189,000, but the second highest, well, the highest bid is $251,000, and I'm trying to look at the differences, and the biggest difference that I see is for the 24-foot sewer lining, and yeah, the unit price. I don't understand this. The quantity is $643. Unit price is $100.74, $84.34. Okay, I'm just trying to ascertain why is the lowest, the highest bid so high, so to speak, or what is the huge difference? Is there something that one? I'm trying to review this and talk at the same time, so I'm trying to see. Okay, I see it. It's the minor traffic device in the project cleanup that pushes them over the edge. Okay, I see it. I answered my own question. Thank you.
Okay, did we vote on this? No. Do we have a motion?
Yep, we have a motion.
Oh, okay.
Roll call vote.
Any further questions? Roll call then, please.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes, but I have another question.
Oops.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just looking at this. Should we be concerned about the minor traffic device in the project cleanup? The company that we awarded the bid to was charging $967 and $317, whereas the Inland Waters, they're charging almost over $11,000 for both of those, and we're charging just over. The company we awarded the project to is costing a little over $1,200. Do we need to be concerned about that?
Madam Mayor, maybe we should just make a motion to table the vote we gotta do some type of, I wanna hear the answer to this question, but to do it under proper Robert's rules, we gotta do something.
What would
gotta
you,
withdraw the motion perhaps, maybe I'll just, whoever did the motion, did I move
Is
it?
your light on? Your light is not on.
I'll withdraw the motion,
and then we'll
so
start
we
again.
can do this discussion, because I want to hear this
Got
answer
it.
too. If
Okay,
That's
you
all right
have
with
to vote.
everybody,
Surely.
withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Withdraw the motion?
Yeah, so that we can discuss it.
Do we need
Okay.
another motion to
Yeah,
discuss?
now we'll bring the motion back on.
Okay,
With a
so
second
is there a
from
motion to
somebody.
award the bid?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
All right,
Then
now we
we
can
can
talk.
discuss it. All right. Now
Sorry.
it's kosher. That's-
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Well, obviously, I can't say why people bid what they bid. Generally, in the project like this, the traffic control devices are pretty minor, the project cleanup is pretty minor. They don't, project cleanup on a major construction project where they're doing a lot of excavating and things like that is going to be much more major and much more involved. This, they may drive on a lawn and create a little rut that they'll have to fill in with topsoil and seed. Generally, with these projects, they don't really cause much of a disturbance. The project cleanup is an item that we put in there to ensure that they will leave the project in as good or better condition than when they started. But to be honest with you, I think the price that they have for project cleanup and minor traffic control devices is fair and reasonable from In Situ Form. And we have no reason to be concerned with their performance based on what they've done for us in the past.
Any further questions? Councilmember Rich?
Nope.
Nope, that answered it. All right, are we ready for a vote then? Okey doke.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes, motion carried. Item 13A is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend Section 901, permitted uses, of Article 9, LI, Light Industrial Districts, Appendix A, zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Oak Park, Michigan. Is there a motion to approve the second reading and adoption?
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion or question? This was the recreational uses added to the industrial area.
Correct.
All right. That we discussed at the previous meeting. We're ready for a vote.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carried. Item B, second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend City of Oak Park Code of Ordinances, adding a new Chapter 3, Municipal Civil Infractions, thereby prescribing civil sanctions for certain violations of the City of Oak Park Code of Ordinances. Is there a motion for the second reading and adoption?
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion or questions? No. Ready to go. Ready for a vote?
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich.
Yep.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Motion carried. I think this will benefit our residents because something that previously you would have had to go to court for, you can just agree to pay the fine, which will be much less, and not go to court over some kind of a code violation. So I think it will improve things for our residents. Item C is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend Article 6, Property Maintenance Code of Chapter 18, Buildings and Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Oak Park by amending Section 18-231 thereof. Is there a motion to approve the second reading?
So moved.
Support?
Moved and supported. Discussion or questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Motion carried. There's a small typo that I'll refer to our clerk later. Item D, second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend Section 42-37, of Chapter 42, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Code of Ordinances, City of Oak Park, Michigan. Is there a motion to approve the second reading?
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes. A motion carried. D. Section E. Second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend Section 38-99 of Chapter 38, Environment of the Code of Ordinances, City of Oak Park. Is there a motion for the second reading and adoption?
So moved?
Moved by Councilmember Burns, seconded by Councilmember Weiss. Discussion or questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes,
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
motion carried. Thank you. City Attorney, aside from doing all of this, to stay out of trouble, is there anything you'd like to talk to?
Well, I just want to thank you all for your review and consideration of the municipal civil infraction ordinance. Of course, that was a lot of work by our city administration, city manager. When we were first hired on, Garen Luco, that was one of our first assignments. So I'm just very pleased that that piece of legislation has passed. And just to forewarn you that you will have some further ordinance amendments coming across your desk in the next, probably not the next meeting, but the one after that, with respect to some other property maintenance and landlord registration ordinances. So,
Excellent.
thank
These
you.
are things that had to be changed and improved for many years, and we're relieved and delighted that they're all cleaned up, and it's a help to economic development, I think, and a help to the city. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I just ask really quick, the upcoming ordinance changes, will those have to do with civil infractions as well, or is that something separate?
Not specific to civil infractions per se, they're more general as to definition of who is a property owner under the ordinances, some of the requirements for completing applications with our technical and planning department. So it will have some bearing on the civil infraction, but not this particular body of ordinances. There will be no further amendments to these at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. City Manager Eric Tungate, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to have our Director of Public Safety, Steve Cooper, join me at the podium in just a moment. I wanted to acknowledge two employees, Colton Dale and Crystal McLean, several months ago, filled out an application to Firehouse Subs, and I think we probably all know Firehouse Subs, to win a grant award for a Hearst cutter, spreader, and ram package with accessories and rescue tool mounts valued at up to $28,000. Submitted our grant application for this, and we were awarded this. And here tonight, our Director of Public Safety is going to demonstrate, right? We have the tools on hand here tonight, so.
Back here to assist me there, Officer Benson. So.
It turns out Firehouse Subs purchased the equipment for us and provided it to us. So take it away.
That's correct. Thank you. Again, good evening to the mayor, and council, and the city manager. And we are forever grateful to the city manager's office and, like I said, Crystal and Colton for submitting the application on behalf of public safety. The vehicle extrication tools are something that we have been trying to upgrade for some time now. We currently have vehicle extrication tools, but as you know, first generation, and then once you go through second and third generation, the technology becomes a lot more efficient. The current tools that we have are operated through a generator, and they have long cables. It probably takes realistically, probably about 5 minutes once you arrive on the scene to actually set up to get the tools operable and ready to go. The tools are such that we have now, you can only operate one tool at a particular time. The tools are still substantially heavy, but as we know, seconds matter. The quick accessibility of these tools, seconds save lives. If I can have Officer Benson come up. One of the, why don't you grab the spreader first? These are all battery operated, battery operated, if you can come over here, battery operated equipment. Like I said, they're also known as the jaws of life. You may have to hold it up, man. Use some of the muscles, man. I'll be straight. You want to put it up here?
Whoa.
It's also known as the jaws of life. If you get someone trapped inside a vehicle where you can't get in maybe one of the doors or compartments, you would actually wedge this piece of steel right in between where the door meets the post where it actually closes, and you go ahead and open it up.
Oh, my God.
Within a matter of seconds, you're inside that vehicle. Now, the new spreaders, you're looking at pounds of force at 147,000 pounds of force. The current ones that we have, the old ones, which still work and do a pretty good job, are about 12,000 pounds. So it's a significant difference. And like I said, we'll have these equipped on our truck, and as soon as you get off, you're jumping off in a matter of seconds. You're ready to roll, as opposed to having to wait, set up cables, and wait for hydraulic fluids to actually go through the lines to operate the tools. Dave, you could put that one back, and you want to go ahead and grab the cutters for us.
Wow.
Get his workout on for the day. No Planet Fitness tonight for Dave here. The cutters are actually just like the name states. These are cutting tools that we use. A lot of times, if you get someone trapped where a car is collapsed or it's flipped over and you have to cut the roof off the cars, you have the A, B post pillars. You can start it up, Deb. A matter of seconds, like you said, you're cutting the post, you're peeling back the roof of that car, and you're looking at this one here now. It's got like 77% more power than the current ones that we have. So we're happy to have those. The last one, Deb, and then we'll let you do your cool down, is the spreaders. Our spreaders are used if we have a situation where someone's trapped and say the dashboard is collapsed onto the leg or the knee area. You can take the bottom portion of this and actually wedge it right on the floorboard and put this piece, let me see. I know he's a little tired. I'll help him out here. If you had a situation where, say, this was the floorboard and you had a dashboard that was collapsed on top of them, you could put this actually right there, wedge this right in between the dashboard. In a matter of seconds, you're ready to rock and roll as far as removing whatever impingement it is that's trapping your victim inside a vehicle. Like I said, we are so happy to be able to have the new equipment here. And like I said, the main thing about it is the expediency of which you can use it. We also have several batteries. If you get into a situation where you get out and all of a sudden you've used the battery dies on you, you have an opportunity to hook right into our junction box and throw another battery in, and you're ready to rock and roll. Like I said, the other ones still work very well. They just take longer to set up. They're cumbersome. And when you're out in the field, like I said before, seconds matter. And to be able to have this equipment is a godsend. We're very appreciative of it. Like I say, City Manager, to you and your office, we thank you again.
And Director,
for
if I
the
could,
foresight and actually finding that equipment for us.
would it be safe to say, and I think, this is another great addition to our department, but I think it'd be safe to say that having these more updated pieces of equipment that operate maybe quicker or whatever it is the difference between life and death in some situations. So, the fact that our folks worked with public safety to get this grant, get these pieces of equipment, this could be somebody's life that's been saved as a result of these efforts that they didn't have to do, but they did, because they thought it was the right thing to do. So I'm very, very proud of public safety, obviously, and the staff that applied for this grant. Very happy to receive it, too. And I think, City Council members, I think we should submit a certificate of recognition to Firehouse Subs, because they delivered many of these awards throughout the country. And, great to receive it, and again, it might be the difference between someone's life and death situation.
Absolutely. Unless there's any questions for me?
Nope.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's
Mayor?
the most excitement we've ever had at a council meeting.
Yeah, I wish, like I said, we'll be more than happy to invite you out on one of our training days in the field where you can actually see them operate. Just to see them run here is nowhere near as impressive as to actually see them put into action when you're, like I said, cutting steel at, like, tearing a piece of foil from a roll. So they're very impressive. And like the city manager said, they absolutely save lives. So thank you again.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Councilmember Weiss.
The grant, was it a national grant or was it a local grant?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
It's a national grant. I don't think it was international, but I know it was national. I was actually reading through the list of departments that had received it, and it was substantial. It's just quite an investment for Firehouse Subs. And quite a distinction that we got it.
Thank you. Great job.
Yeah, no, like I said, we can't take the credit. We'll take the kudos for, and thank them for the submitting the grant. But like I said, anything that helps us, our job, to make it a little easier, we appreciate it. And like I said, it's a teamwork and just a great demonstration of, the team that we have here in the city and everybody willing to pitch in and look out for each other. So again, my hat's off to the city manager's office and Director Crystal McLean and the city manager's assistant in there, Dale Colton. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Council members, I have one more thing I wanted to add, if I could. Speaking of hopefully saving people's lives, we've opened a warming center in our community center, and I think we have a graphic. No, okay. The warming center is open today. It's been open today from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and it's open until Saturday, as of right now, and 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to Friday, and then on Saturday we're going to follow the 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. schedule. I'm sorry, on Friday and Saturday we're going to follow that 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. schedule. Now, if there are people that are displaced that do not have a place to go, we're going to make every attempt to accommodate them. But what I don't want is anyone out in the cold, especially under these current circumstances. This is very, very unusual cold weather. So, and it does look like it's going to break on Sunday. So. Hopefully we won't have to go past that, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew that. Thank you. And that completes the city manager report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Tungate. Martin Luther King Day is coming January 15th, and that's on a Monday. City offices will be closed, so City Council will next meet a week from yesterday, January 16th, on a Tuesday. I think you heard during the financial report that Oak Park Recycling is up 92 more tons than we used to, and I think a lot of it's due to the rolling carts. Thank you all for using them, and thanks to SACRA for providing them. December 21st was the shortest day of the year with only 9 hours and 4 minutes of sunshine, and I smile every December 22nd because my dad would always call me chuckling to ask if I noticed that the days were getting longer because the 22nd was 6 seconds longer than the 21st. It was a groaner. You had to be there. Just to report, the temperatures in sunny Siberia are warmer than the temperatures in Oak Park today. Bundle up. Keep your pets inside. Watch out for your neighbors. It's getting worse, I think, going down to minus 15 to 30 wind chill. Check on your neighbors. Make sure that you have a survival kit in your car with a flashlight, first aid kit, blanket, jumper cables. If your car stops on the side of the road, keep your seatbelt on and stay in the car. Keep your gas tanks at least half full. They also recommended putting a tarp over your hood at night if you don't have a garage. A reminder from Oak Park Schools, they are on vacation, so they are already closed. They don't have to close for the cold. And thank you for braving the frigid temperatures. Is there
Madam Mayor?
a call to the audience?
Never mind. Sorry.
Sorry, right. We forgot you. Anyone out here braving the cold wanting to speak? Just interested? Wow, I'm impressed. All right. Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Please wrap up. Have a pleasant evening and stay warm.
Thank you. Councilmember Weiss.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. A couple of quick announcements from the Parks and Recreation Department. The Recreation Master Plan Survey, which has been going on now for about a month, is coming to a close on Friday, January 5th at midnight. So far, 252 people have completed the survey. which is good. We'd like to see a lot more, though, to complete that. So if you want to have any input on the 5-year plan for the Parks and Recreation Department, please complete that by Friday. It's a pretty brief survey. It will only take about 5 minutes of your time to complete. You can fill it out online through our city website, or you can get a hard copy if you prefer from here, City Hall, from the library, or from the recreation building. And then if you also, Director Stasiak wanted me to stress, if anyone who just wants to come in and talk to her, they're more than welcome to do that as well. Additionally, the Recreation Department has put together a performance by Miss Leslie McCurdy, who is doing a Harriet Tubman one-woman show, which I'm told is very impressive. It's going to be on Sunday, January 28th at 3 p.m. at the Oak Park High School Auditorium, and that is free and open to the public. So we want as many people as possible to attend that. She is a wonderful performer, and it will definitely be something to see. Finally, the Arts and Cultural Diversity Commission is partnering with the City of Southfield for the Southfield MLK Day Peace Walk. We are sending an Oak Park delegation to that event on Martin Luther King Day. So it is Monday, January 15th. The march starts at the Hope United Methodist Church in Southfield at 9:30 a.m. So if you would like to arrive to march with other residents in the city, just get there a little bit before then so we can line up together to march. And then there will be a program. I'll be marching to the Southfield Pavilion, and there will be a program there at 11 a.m. And there will also be a shuttle to take people back to the church afterwards. Oh, one last thing, sorry.
Go for it.
I also just wanted to quickly thank the Communications Department and Director, I'm blanking, DeSantis, thank you, for a wonderful job on the calendar. You should have gotten that if you have not received it yet. There are some copies in the library and City Hall here that you can pick up a copy if you've not gotten yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Rich.
Good night.
He's always so chatty. There being no further business to come before this council, this meeting is adjourned.